Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 260 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast. There's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight we have an ACP roundtable. Of course, it would not be ACP without the lovely Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
You're just buttering me up.
No, I love you.
Should we then call you a biscuit?
Sure. So, I wish to go on record as saying that I philosophically oppose having two roundtables in a row because it seems, sloppy, I think. But, because some people didn't have segments, and some of us have had a really bad week, we're just doing another one. And so because I couldn't think of a better solution, here we are.
Yeah, it is. This is not our first double round table of the It's not. It seems sloppy because it is sloppy. It was the choice of do a round table or just take a week off. And we love you, so we're giving you something to listen to. And if you just hate it, well, you could take a week off. So also joining us, an extra sloppy Oddball.
Yeah, I tried, but the ice cream machine, it was broken.
And his ice cream machine runneth over, David.
Heyo.
He's the only one who did the homework.
I did the homework for the previous week. This was the rollover week for me.
Well, there's something to be said for having the forethought to have a buffer.
Pardon?
There's something to be said for having the forethought to have a buffer.
Buffer, okay. I thought you were talking about Weer'd and Fluffer.
It's the spring of freedom.
Yeah, I agree.
So Oddball, how's your week been? Clearly, the ice cream machine's not working.
Pretty good. I managed to get over and shoot the High Point 10mm carbine that I bought a couple weeks ago because I'm a trash panda. And it functioned well, and it is rather accurate. So I have put in an order for the high tower bullpup stock for it.
I can't. Well, I mean, I'll just say right now that needs to be a whole segment on the. I mean, obviously the you could probably take 2 seconds out of out of the start of it to talk about the 10mm carbine. Is the only question is how's the trigger? Is the trigger horrible or is it decent?
For a pistol caliber carbine. It is pretty good for if you're looking for like a hunting rifle trigger or a high accuracy rifle trigger, you'll hate it. But
if you're looking for those things, maybe you should have spent more on the entire carbine than you would have on the trigger pack.
Yeah. But it's one of those things of people like to complain about pistol caliber carbines or like your FAL or whatever having heavy triggers, etc. And that, well, for what it's designed to be used for, that little heavier trigger is actually a good thing. You don't want people running around with a very light trigger with no travel, that they're wanting to be able to have it fire at a moment's notice for obvious reasons. And if it has that super light short trigger, well, then you're going to get a lot of accidental discharges. So
And by the way, I just went to Geisley's page, and I'm looking at AR-15 triggers, and it appears that Geisley triggers start, at least as far as the MSRP goes, at about $250.
Yeah, which is not far off of what I spent for the carbine.
Okay, that's the second time you've said carbine, and I have to mention it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're carbines.
Eh.
I was just wondering if you were doing it deliberately.
Anyway, it's carbine.
Shut up, Yankee.
PCC. But yeah, and accuracy wise, the range that I was at, the owner of the range has had a quite dead spray paint can dangling from a tree, and I was able to hit it fairly easily at 35, 40 yards.
And since he was shooting 10 millimeter, the spray paint can exploded into pure fire.
Absolutely. And that was, unsupported, standing up, et cetera, et cetera.
And then the tree fell down.
And the hill behind it just crumbled to dust.
And the house on the other side of Nashville that it hit just kind of blew up like one of the houses in the atomic testing videos.
It's 10 millimeter. You shoot somebody so hard their grandparents die.
That's right.
Great
David,
grandparents.
how's your week been?
It's been very long. I know it's only Monday, but I'm doing a 4 days series of trainings so that I can train some additional classes, and it's 8 to 5:30, 4 days in a row. I am not a morning person. I live 40 minutes from the store where the training is taking place, so I have to get up at 6 and leave by 7 to get there by 8, and then I don't get home until after 6. So, makes for a long day. On the plus side, today we got to do the shooting qualification, and they supplied the ammo, so I got to shoot 50 rounds and didn't have to pay for 50 rounds. So that was pretty good.
Plus, because this is for a job, right? So you're getting paid to attend the class?
Yes, it is a class 4 work.
All right. So, in a way, you got paid to shoot, and that was neat.
Oh, yes. That doesn't happen very often. I also learned that a 9-inch circle at 15 yards is really small and blurry. Especially with iron sights.
and eyes that aren't as young as they used to be.
Oh, my eyes were never young. I've worn glasses all my life. I will say, however, it would have been easier if I wasn't about 6 months past getting a new prescription. Because it's gotten to the point now where I really can't keep the front sight in focus. It's blurry.
Why are you waiting so long?
Pardon?
Why are you waiting so long?
Money.
Okay.
Because I think the frames are pretty inexpensive, but
it's always the lenses.
Yeah, and bifocals that correct for a bizarre version of an astigmatism are not cheap.
I was just under the impression that you had, either through your job or through your wife's job, insurance that covered it.
We do have insurance, but it's not, the optic part of the insurance is not great.
Ah, okay.
So I think it's like $200-something for each of us. So we delay because I need to one of the reasons I'm taking these classes is so I can teach more classes, so I can earn more of the monies, so I can do things like get new glasses and pay down some medical bills and buy more guns and ammo.
Always
tools.
More guns and ammo.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and I think today's 50 rounds were 1,500 rounds through my my M&P 2.0. So I know I ran through a case of it prior, and I think was at home just shy of half a case that I bought.
So we all know that you passed, but how did you do on the shooting segment?
Well, it was a total of 50 rounds at 4 different distances: 4 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards, and 15 yards. And this is not marksmanship type shooting. This is defensive type shooting. So you're shooting faster than you're actually comfortable with, I guess you could say. You're pushing your speed. And because I was doing that, I went a little too fast at the 4-yard target and dropped one round like a quarter of an inch outside the 9-inch circle, which was annoying. Then at 7 yards, everything in the circle. At 10 yards, I think one of them outside the circle. And then at 15 yards, 3 outside the circle. So out of the 50 rounds, 45 were inside the circle, which gave me a 90%.
Good for you.
Yeah, so it's not bad shooting. If I'd gone a little bit slower, it would have been better. But of the 5 people in the class, I think I tied for the highest score.
Oh, good for you.
Nice.
So,
but it still wasn't good enough. We've just learned a lot about David and how we described this.
None of you met my mother. But I think you can understand with the, oh, you got a 90. Why couldn't you have gotten 100? Oh, you were, I was never salutatorian, but if I had been salutatorian, it would have been, why weren't you valedictorian?
Mm-hmm.
I love my mother, but she was not easy to impress with my accomplishments for the most part.
I was 3rd in my class.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Good thing you weren't Asian. You would have been disowned. I remember when I was in elementary school, middle school, whatever it was, one of my classmates who was Asian and his parents were first generation Japanese Americans. So his grandparents did not speak English. And in one of the classes, I think he got a B or B+, and he was terrified to go home because there is some truth in that stereotype. And Oddball, I just saw the meme you posted, and I didn't realize where it was, and I was just going to bring it in here and post it. It's the meme of the 2 guys with the dog. Does he bite? No, but he can hurt you in other ways. Then the dog says, the 1911 is older than sliced bread. Of course, so is the 9mm cartridge. No, the 9mm cartridge is even older.
Joke's on you. I own a 1911 and a very fancy bread slicer, and I think they're both wonderful.
But was it 9mm is 1902 and 45 is 1906 or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, suck it, fanboys.
I think 45 is 1908. That's sticking in my head.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But 9mm is, I'm almost positive 9mm is 1902.
I believe you are correct. I believe 38 Special is also 1902.
I thought 38 Special was just prior to the turn of the century, and not just after, but that might be 3030.
Well, you can look that up while while
you say hello to the internet again?
Yes. No. So, Erin, I don't know. Do you want to do you want to say any more about your week other than it was just long?
Not really. I mean, it's not like it's a great secret or anything, but I'm just kind of done talking about it.
I fully understand and respect that, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to assume one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I will just say that we actually had a nice weekend. We went up and spent the weekend up at my folks' place. They just they've sold their house, the house that I grew up in, and moved to a retirement community. And they're not quite as happy as they're going to be because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to unpack and situate, and they're thinking about getting some better pieces of furniture for certain applications and things like that. But oh my God, like they're just like so happy. So I am very, very pleased for them, and glad that they have made it to that place in their life. And we had a great time with them.
And I did look it up, and the Smith & Wesson the 38 Special was designed and entered production in 1898 and was chambered in the Smith & Wesson M&P revolver model 1899.
Okay, well then I was way off.
No, you're just 2 years on the wrong side of the century change. So you thought it was 2 years after, it was 2 years before, so that's really not. Especially from this distance, that's not far. Oh, wait, why am I saying that? Yes, you were wrong because you're stupid.
Yes, I am wrong. It's stupid.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Forgot myself for a moment.
Well, shall we move into the topics?
Sure.
We have to, I guess.
All right, let us start off with this first one, because this first one I'm gonna laugh. I've been hearing about this for a little while, and haven't really brought it up, but I thought it would be a fun one to bring up on this, which is that Senator Josh Miller of Rhode Island, he was at a shopping center and saw a car with a Biden sucks bumper sticker on the back of it, and so he went up and keyed it, and it was actually the teenage son of the owner was borrowing it and saw him do it and didn't recognize him, but saw that he had a Josh Miller for Senate bumper sticker on the back of his car, and looked that up and realized that he recognized the person on the campaign posters, and he has what did he plead?
Nolo contendere.
No contest to the charges. And the only reason why I bring this up is that number one, he's Rhode Island and he's extremely anti-gun. But furthermore, he had, which ties into just an overall arching theme, that many of the anti-gun politicians and anti-gun activists are anti-gun because they're generally people that would do better in a world where people don't have firearms, such as...
Well, they're also people who shouldn't be trusted with firearms because they don't have the self-control to not use them badly.
Exactly. He saw a Biden sucks sticker. Didn't even see a Joshua Miller sucks bumper sticker, though. I must say that I wonder if people are starting to print up those, because that would be that's a missed opportunity, people of Rhode Island.
Yep.
But
he thought the reason he keyed the car, he later said, was that he thought the driver was one of those gun nuts who stalk him.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so if you think that a car belongs to someone who is stalking you and threatening you, of course you're going to vandalize their property, because that makes sense.
The old meme, if gun owners were as violent as anti-gun people say we are, there would be no anti-gun people. And it's one of those
and if there were no, if gun owners were as violent as gun prohibitionists claim we are, there would be no gun prohibitionists. Mm-hmm. If gun prohibitionists were as peace-loving as they claim they are, there would be a lot less violence.
I mean, that's... go ahead.
I was going to say is towards the bottom of the article, the Republican chairman of the state Republican Party, Joe Powers, was quoted as saying, after calling for him to resign, "Unfortunately, this is not the first time the senator has retaliated against someone he disagrees with politically. Whether it's verbal attacks or, in this case, damage to personal property, Miller has shown disregard for anyone who is not aligned with his own party." Yeah, that sounds about right. And then it's also basically his own party excusing him because of his long record of service, because he has taken responsibility for his actions, and because the events of that day had nothing to do with his responsibilities in the Senate or his position as state senator. We are putting this incident behind us and moving forward.
And the only reason why he's taking responsibility for his actions is because there was a security camera in the parking lot that caught him doing it.
Yeah, he got caught on video.
He spent a long time arguing with the cops in the parking lot, and then later when the cops showed up at his door and said, "Yeah, you're coming down to the station with us," that he did nothing wrong.
And he still probably believes he did nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to...
Oh, go ahead, Erin.
Finish your thought.
The key takeaway I wanted to bring from this is that this is another example. Again, you see all of these horrible laws being gone through in all this just really dehumanizing treatment that that the gun prohibitionists do towards us, whether it be the closed door meeting that was going on with the Massachusetts gun law that they're trying to pass and just trying to sneak it through, or just all the tiny PP jokes and things like that, or
you like guns. Now I'm going to think of your genitals.
Yeah, or how they portray armed private citizens in Hollywood movies. It's always the fat dude in the flannel, and he's not very smart. And
but he's got a lot of guns, and he's willing to be violent.
That's right, and he doesn't much care for those minorities. It's very, very clear that they certainly don't believe that we are violent or dangerous, because if we were, they would really be they would really be bothering us, and they would be leaving us the hell alone. And I not to step out too much onto the political line, but Penn and Teller, when they did their special for Showtime BS, they noted that they had several anti-Christian episodes, but at no point did they speak at all against Islam or the Quran, and that was intentional. And of course, that's not casting asperity to any followers of Islam out there as a whole, but to say that there are some violent reactionaries within the religion is pretty well documented. And if that was at all an issue within Second Amendment supporters, we would not have stories like this. And that leads to, again, we have I mentioned the law in Massachusetts, where they are revamping all the gun laws, and every single one of them just makes life harder for law-abiding gun owners. At no point do they increase penalties, punishment, enforcement of violating the gun laws for violent criminals. It's the only punishments that happen are compliance punishments. If you don't register these guns, if you don't register these magazines, et cetera, et cetera. If you commit a crime while using these, we're going to throw extra penalties at you. Nope, nothing of the sort on this.
Nope. The entire purpose is to try to crush the culture.
Correct, and that's saying they clearly don't believe that we're dangerous. They all know that we are not causing that problem. I mean, you can look at either the Massachusetts permits. How often are they revoked because of violent criminal activity? How often are concealed carry permits revoked because of violent criminal activity? It's exceptionally low. So clearly their motivation is something entirely different. And why don't you give that a thought? And if that's not unsettling to you, then you should be thinking a little harder.
I just want to point out that it's amusing for me, and I don't know if it's like this for anyone else's browser, but for me, the embedded related video was about Ezra Miller speaking out about his harassment claims and him being weird. And I actually had a brief moment of, wait, what? Is this guy related? And I finally figured out, okay, it's because, they're both about people named Miller, and that's all. But it just...
That is weird.
It amused me.
It shows up for me too.
Yep, me too.
It was just, hey, while you're talking about this politician who overreacted and did something criminal, here's a video about an actor who did something criminal. So,
who shares the last name.
Yeah.
All hail the algorithm.
I admit it's thin, but it made me do a double take, and then I was amused. So
I'll just say that Larry Miller is a wonderful guy. So moving.
Same thing with Barney.
Yeah. So shall we move on to the next one? I'm not gonna.
Well, we're gonna have to travel pretty far for that one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this one for many reasons. I mean, it is Auckland. Yeah, Auckland, New Zealand had themselves a spree killing. Thankfully for them, it was very small. It was 2 dead and 5 others wounded. But that, according to their rules, this counts. And
was the shooter killed?
Yes.
I'm not seeing.
Yes.
The shooter was killed. And did they count the shooter as one of the 2 dead?
Well, I don't know that.
I don't know.
Here's what I know from reading the article. Somebody got mad and walked into I don't quite know what the building was, but had a pump action shotgun and basically was shooting as he moved upstairs. And the 2 people killed were found on the lower levels. And when he reached the upper levels, they say he barricaded himself in an elevator shaft, which doesn't quite make sense because if you're on the upper level, the shaft goes all the way down. So maybe they mean the elevator at the top. I don't know. But the police...
Yeah, it might have been the elevator service room or something.
Maybe, but the point being is that the police found him about 40 minutes later, shots were exchanged, and the offender was later located deceased.
Okay, so he killed 2 people, and then the police killed him, or he killed himself. Okay,
yes, they did not. They did not. In that the two dead are real people,
innocent victims.
That's right, and there was a 3rd body, but that was not people.
Was it Soylent Green?
Knowing New Zealand, I shouldn't make light.
No, but
the
dark humor is like food. Not everyone gets it.
Yes, but the only reason I wanted to bring it up again, Erin always makes a great point on the I don't care what other countries think of us and all that, and we shouldn't we should offer the same to other countries. So really, I am speaking about this to our own politicians who will often, first up, who frequently say, oh, Australia had a mass shooting and then they had a widespread mass confiscation of firearms. They call it a buyback, but it's you give it to us and we'll give you money, or you wait and then we will come and arrest you and take it.
Or kill you.
Exactly. And then they say, oh, and then they had no other spree killings, ignoring like half a dozen spree killings that have happened since then. And this, of course, is right in the wake of the horrible mosque killing that was in New Zealand, and of course the Jacinda Ardern had pushed the massive amounts of gun control through there. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's
never has, never will.
Yep. The best you can get is turning like the many countries that have either serial slashers. You've got the Japanese shooter who killed Shinzo Abe, who used that homemade gun,
which Brandon Herrera later terrified himself by recreating.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And including and it got removed by the algorithm because I was watching it. Wait, he's showing that part? He actually showed him. He actually made the gunpowder himself. And I'm like,
yep.
Yeah, that's that is expressly forbidden in the YouTube algorithm. And while I don't have a problem with it at all, I get him. I get it.
Yeah, I think he actually got a strike, and he responded to that with, "Yeah, I should have known that was coming."
that was one of those that it's legit. But the best, maybe it's not the right word, but one of the more entertaining parts of his video was he hit the electric detonator, the gun fired, and he just sat there for a moment and then got up and patted himself down to make sure there were no holes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but yeah,
the gun control is seen as damage, and the world routes around it.
I want to point out that this particular firearm is about as FUD as you can get, because New Zealand prohibits even pump action shotguns that hold more than 5 rounds. So either this guy had a prohibited firearm, in which case it shows that prohibition doesn't work, because we've been at war with drugs for over 60 years and drugs have won, or it proves that well, again, laws against murder aren't going to stop people, and they will use whatever firearms they can get their hands on. You know, a pump-action shotgun holding 5 rounds is basically the shotgun version of a revolver. You know, the only way it could get more simple is if it's a, break open, like, single shot or something.
Yeah.
And
single shot or double barrel.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be holding my breath because I'm pretty sure that New Zealand is, well, I'm not going to say it's a certainty, but I would certainly bet that New Zealand is going to double down and further restrict the types of firearms, specifically shotguns, that are allowed. And I think that they may go to the break action single or double barrel. That's the only kind you can have now. And then, a crime will be committed with that. And it'll just be, okay, now all guns are illegal. And then, oh, look, people who are going to commit murder aren't going to think twice about breaking these other laws. We know this dance.
Yeah. Well, look at England. Firearms are not completely banned, but exceedingly restricted. And once gun crime started to go down because of the lack of availability of guns, knife crime went up, so they started passing anti-knife laws, to the point that in a home goods store, the children's flatware set is in a locked case.
Yep.
So I was just actually trying to search to try to find a little bit more information on the shotgun that he used, just to see what the story, and I didn't find that, but I found this article that I just put in the show notes. Gunman who killed 2 had family violence history, said New Zealand police. And then
wait, say it right. Say the proper phrase.
That he was known to the police.
He was known to law enforcement.
Yep. This individual is that the New Zealand Police Commissioner, Andrew Coster, said the individual is known for primary family violence history, he said, and he was under home detention.
He adds that he believes there were indications of mental health history in the offender.
Mm-hmm. And note that New Zealand is one of those many, many countries that doesn't let you own guns until you get a mental health evaluation.
Right. Also, they don't have a lot of the legal protections that Americans expect for illegal search and seizure, law enforcement entry into the home, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So if the police really had wanted to jack him up, there was very little legal prohibition against doing so.
Yeah.
As far as I understand, I'm not a legal expert on American laws. Certainly not. I could certainly have gotten New Zealand and Australia completely wrong too.
This very much fits into the Parkland conundrum, which is the police do absolutely nothing both before and during the shooting, and then
but they'll take pictures after.
Yeah, but the prohibitionists will then turn around and say, we need more laws to prevent this to happen, because then the police could stop them before violence happens.
Well, I mean, I can't say the police did nothing. They did respond, and they did contribute to the person dying. So it wasn't they weren't useless like Uvalde.
In the case of you're 100% correct, Erin, and I should correct myself. In Parkland, the police did nothing.
Oh, yeah. Yes, in Parkland, correct.
And Uvalde.
Yeah, but in this case, the police did very little leading up to this, because the guy's obviously out and about shooting people when he should be in house arrest with a firearm that should be illegal, and also had signs of mental illness and domestic violence. I don't know if New Zealand has the specific distinctions of domestic violence like we do, but either way, it's there's just layer upon layer upon layer of things that could have stopped him, and thankfully the police did act, and that's probably why the body count was so low. And so it's that's what I meant by that, of the, we're going to need more laws as we don't do crap about the we already have.
Yeah. And from the way has been reported, the New Zealand Auckland, New Zealand law enforcement did nothing prior, even though they had information. They did almost nothing during. because he did all of his shooting and then barricaded himself in the elevator shaft. It doesn't say a whole lot about the order of that. It did mention that he injured a police officer, but we don't know if that was while he was in his barricaded position or or led to him being in a barricaded position. So it's really challenging to say what did they actually do.
I don't know. There's not a whole lot of information one way or the other, so there could have been a lot more engagement, and there's just I'm not seeing a ton in there. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not ready to go there personally.
We can probably safely assume you're wrong.
Yes, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
I will say the one thing that they are doing right, and New Zealand has this down pat, and I will say that I wish we were more like this, is they are doing everything they can to suppress the name of this person so that they do not get the notoriety that sometimes happens when there is the media feeding frenzy around this. And I remember obviously this guy will not be standing trial, but the one that shot the mosque in was that in Christchurch?
Yes, Christchurch.
Yeah. And so the mosque shooting in Christchurch, of course, that guy was apprehended alive and did face trial, and actually did get I believe it was the first ever life without parole sentence that's ever been carried out in New Zealand. And so,
as opposed to all of the ones that occurred in Australia.
Yeah, I said here, live on the show when that was going down, that they were going to be executing all of the guns because the law stipulated that all the guns turned in. They couldn't box them up and send them over here. We'd be more than happy to get them. Maybe have to.
In fact, in some cases, get them back.
Yeah. Or in most cases get them back, so we, maybe undo some of the New Zealand compliance modifications, but people would be more than happy to have some base AR-15s to or even lever action rifles, et cetera.
The Enfield rifles.
And so, but no, the firearms had to be destroyed. But up until this moment, every other and this guy was both of these shooters were young men. There was a very good chance that had some the most harsh to that point sentence be carried out on them, they were going to get back out in, I think it was 35 years before the first parole hearing. I think was one of the longest. I didn't come prepared for this one, but it's not that long, and this guy could have gotten out while a still, relatively young age. But thankfully they did not do that. And when he was standing trial, they blurred his face.
Nice.
So yeah, I appreciate that. As a matter of fact,
that is about as close as we're likely to get to the Some Asshole Initiative.
Yes, as I have read a lot of accounts of this guy and the guy that was in Christchurch, and so I had read his name. I've since forgotten it because why would I bother committing that to memory?
Right.
But as far as I know, I don't think I've ever seen a picture of his face because there was never one available. So,
none of us went out and looked.
No, but
we don't care what they look like. They are best forgotten by human society.
Yep. So either way, this is that there's going to be a lot of probably incorrect things being done, and there was a lot of incorrect things that were done. But one of the correct things that was done is do not give these people notoriety. They're cowards. They're jerks. They're mentally ill. They've got problems. They are dangerous, and we don't want them to have a cult of personality. And so do as much as you can to demean them and go through. And to this date, the only spree killers photo that I will proudly post is the person who shot up Club Q in Colorado, because he got his head bashed in by the patrons and got himself some drag queen heels to the face. And I like that. I like that. I think that should be far and wide.
Yep. He was taken down and humiliated.
That's the queer community's version of mess with the bull, get the horns. Mess with the drag queen, you get the 8-inch heels.
F around, find out.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right. We got I did the first start of this, but anyone else want to take this one, or should I keep monopolizing the show?
Is about the gun safety thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is stuff that has been known. There were studies done on this in the 90s. So I'm not sure why it's news again. Yeah, there was I remember watching video of a double-blind study of children, and it was the early days of the Eddie Eagle program. And they had two groups of kids. One was put through the Eddie Eagle program. One was not. They then mixed the two groups together, put them in a playroom, and watched through two-way mirrors as the kids were playing in the playroom, and there were several deactivated firearms in the playroom. And when the kids found them, the ones who had not gone through the program played with them like they were toy guns, pointing them at each other and snapping the triggers, whereas the kids who had gone through the program ran to get an adult. And it was, like I said, that was 30 years ago, maybe.
And this study actually verifies that, because I read through, the abstract, because reading the full test would require me to sign up and probably pay. But they did say that children who saw the safety video were more likely to tell an adult about the gun they found, less likely to touch the gun, held the gun fewer seconds if they did touch it, were less likely to pull the trigger at all, and pulled the trigger fewer times. And so all of this proves that watching a gun safety video makes children safer. And so that's good. That does... they don't mention Eddie Eagle by name, but it does... It justifies not the right word, but it proves that programs like Eddie Eagle work, and that children benefit from learning them. The thing that got me, and so they're talking about risk factors, and when they say risk factors, they mean, did the kid pick it up and play with it rather than finding an adult. And risk factors include being male. I mean, I get what they're saying, that boys are more likely to play with a gun that they perceive as a toy, but still, that bothers me.
Again, this is sadly nothing new. A lot of groups have been pathologizing being a boy for several decades.
Well, let me skip ahead really quick, because... obviously, I didn't read the full study either. And FYI, for anybody that might be interested in seeing it, you could sign up and probably pay money to get a subscription to this journal. Or exactly, you could look up Dr. Brad J. Bushman and actually just shoot him an email and say, "Hey, I'm curious about this study that you conducted. Would you could I get a copy to?" And guess what? Researchers don't get paid to publish their stuff in journals. The journals get paid for people to read it, but the publication is the quote unquote payment in the academic world. And so therefore it's no sweat off them to freely distribute their study to anybody who asks, as a general rule. So if you
the folks who do these, who write these papers and get them published in these organizations, by these organizations in their magazines and websites, whatever, they're being paid in exposure.
Correct.
And you know what happens?
You die from exposure.
Exposure? Thank you. Yes. So as Weer'd said, they will, in many cases, happily send copies of their papers to anyone who asks because they don't care.
By the way, it's also more than exposure because you do have the peer review system. So essentially, it goes from a study to essentially a validated study.
Yeah, but remember there was on a mag dump we did the story about the peer-reviewed articles that were completely made up and ludicrous and ridiculous, but they were peer-reviewed and they were published anyway.
I was
so peer review doesn't really mean what it might have used.
It does not, but it's still in academia. It still holds that that quality. But either way,
in some academia, but yeah,
I wasn't able to find the video, but also the statement is it does say risk factors include being male, but also watching age inappropriate movies, gun interest, and positive gun attitudes. Again, I'm curious on what those mean and how those salt out. If it is the being male really a risk factor, or is it the cultural angles? Because the idea of boys of watching age inappropriate movies is probably more likely to be boys are going to be exposed to violent movies more than little girls, culturally speaking. And as far as gun interest and positive attitude towards guns, even if your child is not being exposed to age inappropriate movies or discussions of guns or gun violence in a positive light, little boys may be more willing to be playing cops and robbers at all. So
I do also want to point out that, and I don't have the data in front of me, but so you've got the unsafe factors of being male and gun interest. Oh, horror. But then they list the factors that are related to safe behavior, which include prior completion of a firearm safety course and having guns at home. And so I would be interested in, okay, and I want to point out that the study is from ages 8 to 12. So these aren't like super little. These are, I think you'd call them tweens at this point. And so I wonder if, okay, you're a male and you're interested in guns, but there are guns at home and you've completed the safety course. I mean, is that a complete wash? Does one score higher than the other? They don't address this, of course.
It might be in the data. I'm not really sure, but I mean, I will say that having guns in the house, so long as you are not doing the crappy thing, which is just keeping them tucked away and not telling anybody about them, because hey, guess what? Kids are going to find the Christmas presents. They're also going to find the gun. So the key is to instead of child-proof your gun-proof your child. And one of the best things that's going on, it's both been said by Massa Youb and Kathy Jackson, the relatives, is whenever the kids want to handle the gun within reason, the answer is always yes. And you always handle it in a safe way. You clear the firearm, show them that it's clear, show them how to clear the firearm.
Basically, reinforce all the standard gun safety rules.
That's right. And then give them a safe direction for which to point it, and that it can only be pointed at that safe direction. And since you will not be shooting, the finger stays off the trigger the entire time. And they can hold it, and they can look at it, and they can feel it, and all of that. But they can't go clickety, clickety, clickety and point it at people, which might be fun, which is play. They're not allowed to play with it. They're only allowed to experience it. And guns quickly get very, very boring. And then when they get to that point where you suddenly take them onto the range and they're putting holes in pieces of paper, guns are really, really boring unless you're in a safe place to shoot them. Or you're a gun nut and you like X variation.
I was going to say... Yeah, guns are not boring even if you're not in a place to shoot them. You just bite your tongue.
I mean, some people there are. Gotta give respect to them. My daughter and wife are not interested in the minutia of firearms. They just like to shoot them.
That's fine, but that doesn't make the guns boring.
Yeah. Well, either way, David, you mentioned the study in the 90s, and I had not even heard about that, which kind of surprises me. I think I would have stumbled on it.
Well, yeah, but you were like in what, kindergarten?
This sounds vaguely familiar to me. I want to say it was one of these. Well, okay, the study may have been done independently, but there was one of these online news magazines that ran a segment on it, like 60 Minutes or 2020. And
yeah, that sounds about right.
I had forgotten all about it, but as you talked, I think I remember having seen it, and the little kids and finding the gun and, playing with it and whatever.
Yeah, well, there was definitely a study that was done fairly recently in the early years of the 2000s. I thought I had thrown it up on the in the show notes. I can look it back up, but essentially,
yeah, I'm pretty sure this one was 90s because it was not long after the Eddie Eagle program started, and it was the study. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was commissioned by the NRA to demonstrate the value of the system, but. We're talking like 10 years ago, so who knows?
Yeah, I will try to dig up that news report and put it in the show notes. I just did a quick search and wasn't able to find it right off the top of my head. I did find it earlier on today, but something happened to it. Either I forgot to post it or that's not it. Double checking that I don't have it open. Nope, I don't have it. So either way, there was a study, and it was essentially trying to say, oh, Eddie Eagle doesn't work. That one, they specifically named Eddie Eagle. They showed two groups of kids Eddie Eagle, and then or one group of kid Eddie Eagle and one group did not. And then they had a deactivated firearm that had some sort of electronic push button installed inside of it, so that when the trigger was pulled, it would light up a light in the observation room. And they essentially showed the kids this one video. These were kids who had zero gun exposure in the past at all. And then they said, okay, now that we're done this task, you kids can go play. And they had a toy box filled with various toys, including a couple of deactivated firearms.
Yeah, that sounds like the one I was remembering.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so, in that instance, it's one of those, like, that is totally playing against it, because again, I had toy guns as a kid. You have a gun that looks that looks like a gun, but you put it in a toy box. I'm not going to think this is a real gun. Mm-hmm. If they had instead had put it on the teacher's desk or some other place where it was an adult space, not a child's space, then that would make a lot more fun, but
a lot more sense.
Or make a lot more sense, and it would also again trigger that statement of this must be a toy, at the same time, if there's a plastic knife in the
toy box,
the kids are not going to expect it to be razor sharp
because it's in a toy box. That's where toys go.
Correct.
Yes. Setting an expectation.
Yes. So the knife is probably plastic or rubber.
But this particular study that we're talking about that happened recently is a lot better, because they did specify that it wasn't in a toy box. It was in a filing cabinet, which, as Weer'd mentioned, is a far more adult space rather than the very loaded, let's put it in a toy box. Yeah, that's not fair. Because even
putting it in the toy box, a number of the kids still didn't play with it.
True, but I agree with your assessment. If you tell the kids, go play with the toys, and there's a gun in the toy box, I think it's reasonable that the child would assume that it's a toy to be played with.
Absolutely.
Especially if the kids have no exposure to no exposure to guns beforehand. So the idea that they might know, I know for a fact my great grandfather would take me bear hunting, quote unquote, up in the woods behind his house, and he gave me a little single shot 22 that he kept for shooting varmints in the backyard. That was, not loaded, and it was for me. I didn't even know it was a real gun as a kid. I remember holding it and going, "This is kind of a cool toy because it looks really real and it's heavy, but it kind of sucks because when you pull the trigger, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't even go click, click, click." And so, and so again, I didn't even realize that was a real firearm until later in life, and realized, oh, he was having me lug around the real firearm, not loaded. Even then, at that point in time, I still had not been exposed to firearms, so I still wasn't that really wasn't that cool, or times were different back then. But yeah, so if a kid doesn't have exposure, my daughter might be more if she picks up a quote unquote toy gun or a gun from a toy box and finds that it is heavy. Actually, my one of her friends found an old rusted cap gun, one of those old roll cap guns that was made of the stamped metal. Found one just like buried in the dirt in the woods behind the house, and my daughter got real nervous and was like, "Hey, Dad, come have a look at this." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, that's an old toy cap gun. That's fine." But she saw gun shape and she saw metal, and she had been handling real firearms for several years at that point, and was definitely let's check this out. This is striking me as a little bit off.
Yeah. Years ago, when we were living in upstate New York, and shortly after we bought our house, I think. So this was the fairly early in the aughts, over at a friend's house. He did not have a pistol license. And to remind folks, in the state of New York, it is illegal to handle a handgun without a pistol license. He had found, in an old barn, he had found a fairly badly rusted break-top revolver. And I had to explain to him that even though it was probably non-functional, that was still a crime in the state of New York. So have you guys seen some of the magnet hunting videos?
Yes.
And they're pulling various things up, and sometimes they pull up firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was an incident like that in New York. I think it was in the last 10 years. And they were doing a magnet drag. They pulled up a handgun. They called the police, and then were arrested for illegal possession of a handgun. Because, well, you're doing the right thing. You need to be punished.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing like punishing the behavior you claim you want to see, because I guarantee that that particular person and all the person's friends and anyone else who's heard about it, it will never report a found gun to the police, and probably won't report much of anything to the police ever again.
Yep, I mean, the DA in that county dropped the case, but
well, at least there's some sense somewhere.
Yeah, so it had I'm not going to say a happy ending, a positive ending in that respect, but the 2 or 3 guys still had to spend the money on lawyers before it got to that point. So it's the constantly repeated statement that we make that the gun prohibitionists don't actually want gun safety. And I don't know how this study that with the link in the show notes, how this is being received, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's either buried or someone tries to twist it, even though the conclusion statement, I think, is very clear.
I have found the video. It is 2020, and it's from a series called Young Guns. And it was
the show 2020, not the year 2020.
Yes. Yep. The show.
And what year was that broadcast?
2017.
Okay, then that was a much later.
Correct. Because
I remember the woman I was dating at the time, and we broke up in like 96 or 97.
Yeah, but this one was absolutely a ham-handed hit piece, and it immediately came to mind with this study showing that the piece was crap because again the kids were doomed to fail, and this study showed that it's the that in fact gun safety is a good thing, and abstinence only education is not great.
Yeah, we believe that gun safety is a good thing, but it's been proven over and over again that the gun prohibitionists disagree with us.
Mm-hmm. Or we could argue that the gun prohibitionists don't care about safety because, hey, guess what? When a kid starts playing with a gun and accidentally shoots themselves, they can use that as juice for pushing more gun control.
Of course, that's the point.
All right, next story
from the Trace. Is that the one?
Yep. Yep, I dug this one up.
Again, this is not news.
Nope. But it's hilarious coming from the Trace because again, and they even in their writing, the deadliest mass shootings are perpetrated with military style rifles, which inflict devastating wounds, which is also not true. The data is there that the bulk of all crime is done with handguns. I will also say in defense, the bulk of all defensive gun use is done with handguns.
Yep. I do want to read this little snippet from the article. Before we get into the data, though, it's important to note that the Violence Project looks at a narrow subset of mass shootings, those that occur in public places, take 4 or more lives, and have no connection to underlying criminal activity. Isn't that basically the FBI definition of a mass shooting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much.
This means it excludes domestic shootings that take place indoors, as well as shootings in which dozens of people are injured but not killed. The organization's data shows that handguns are, in fact, the gun of choice in such attacks. And this is my favorite part, of 190 incidents dating back to 1966, perpetrators in 80% of attacks used at least one handgun. So in the last almost 60 years, there were 190 incidents that took place in public places, took 4 or more lives, and have no connection to underlying criminal activity. And I'm sorry, what is this epidemic of mass shootings?
Well, and that's the point that I'm always making is those 190 incidents, and probably not even all of them, but when those rare mass shootings happen, these are the ones that make the news and are part of the news cycle for the next week or more, and going through. But then when they turn around and talk about the shootings where only injuries happen, where there might be underlying crime in the background, where it might be domestic violence related and all of that, they like to try to lump those in, and that's where we get those ridiculous numbers that say that there are a dozen or so mass shootings every week in this country, because when they say there have been hundreds of mass shootings this year alone, it leads people to think, oh, there's dozens of Parklands and Ivaldis every week. Oh my God. No.
Nope.
But again, I chose this story because it came from Michael Bloomberg's The Trace. Also, I will say that I have fun looking at the websites. The Trace and the Reload are both excellent news articles for Second Amendment stuff, just for different uses and reasons. But I found that I scrolled halfway through the first page, and I was already into the stuff that I had read about weeks ago, and yet Steve Gutowski's got new stuff coming up every day. So
because he does the work.
Yes, and I will note that I've talked to Steve a lot, and he again, if you are not a subscriber, please consider it, because Steve's like, man, he's just telling me, he's like, we need more. If we can get more subscribers, I can have more money. I can hire more people. I can get more stuff. I can do more travel. He's running it on a shoestring budget.
Oh yeah.
That's
because he doesn't have Michael Bloomberg money.
Correct. And that's the point, is that while the Trace is being run by an endowment from Michael Bloomberg, the Reload is...
And, well, the Trace is run by an endowment from Michael Bloomberg, and they're mostly regurgitating other media sources. They're not doing much, if any, original research, as far as I understand.
Given that I've followed some of the Twitter profiles of some of their authors, I don't think that they're doing much original anything. But the fact that these guys have Michael Bloomberg money and are being pushed through, and the organization is huge compared to the Reload, and still Steve's just running circles around him. So again, hat to Steve, and again another nice request for a friend of both the show and of the Second Amendment as a whole. Do the guy a favor. Sign up. You can sign up for a month. You can sign up for a year, or you could be cheap like me and go, you know what? He's going to be around for a while, and I'm going to read this site all the time, and just do the lifetime thing, and I don't have to do it again.
And it gives you another reason to live a long time.
Exactly. So, shall we move on to?
I don't like this one.
Yeah, I'm not super upset by it, because it's just further going up the road. These things happen. I'll say right now with the Warman v. Healy, which was the
okay.
The
first,
attack.
Tell the listeners what the hell you're talking about, because
Yes.
you haven't said.
Yes.
Yeah, we did bury the lead there. Sorry.
Thank you, Erin. The title from the Reload is Federal Judge Upholds San Jose Gun Ownership Tax and Insurance Mandate. So we've talked about it before on the show. The city of San Jose, California, has an ordinance in place that says that all gun owners within the residency of the city must pay a yearly fee for owning their firearms, and must carry some form of liability insurance. We have done multiple segments on this where that does not exist and may be completely illegal. So I don't believe that. Yes, it's part of this case is their statements is that for it is that it has never been enforced. Nobody has been arrested or charged for failing to pay their fee or for not having the insurance that doesn't exist.
Which doesn't make a law constitutional or just.
No, it does not.
Right.
I mean, and all it takes is enforcing it against one politically unpopular person, and the reality becomes clear.
So 2 years ago, when this idea was being floated, I penned a press release on the Blazing Sword website where I said that the San Jose gun tax was unenforceable, unfair, and useless. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, although I think it's a very short thing to read. But what I want to talk about very specifically is the unenforceable, because 2 years on, history has proven this. And you know, what I said was the city of San Jose has no firearms registry. Furthermore, California doesn't register non-assault weapon firearms. So unless the San Jose City Council planned to have the police investigate every single one of its citizens for compliance, which would render them useless to do anything else for quite some time, because, I don't quite remember how many people are in San Jose. Here we go. In a city of 1 million. Yeah, they'd be busy for a while. So unless they did essentially a door-to-door investigation looking for guns, the police would have no way of knowing who is paying the tax and who isn't, and therefore the city would have to rely on voluntary compliance. And of course, as we know, criminals are famous for complying with laws. So,
and as we've seen recently when it comes to ridiculous gun control laws, peaceable citizens are not interested for the most part in complying anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, remember when the SAFE Act was passed in New York 10 years ago that required registration of a broad swath of long guns, the compliance rate was under 10%.
And so it's like they have said in that article, 2 years on, the police don't enforce it. They really can't enforce it. The most they can do is use it as an add-on, either for someone who's already been arrested for something else, or for, well, we investigated and you've got a gun and, show us your proof of tax payment or whatever. And, oh, we don't have it. Well, now we're going to punish you. It really is broadly unenforceable. You can only do it. Piecemeal is not the right word, but on the spot.
I think I know the word, but I can't remember it as well.
Yeah.
Promiscuously? No.
I mean, really, the concern that I have is targeted. And again, we mentioned the beginning of the Massachusetts gun law that hopefully won't pass at the time of this. It has not been voted on yet. I don't think it's even come out. I actually haven't heard a recent update from Goal about it. But one of the statements is like, okay, you're going to have to register all of your feeding devices, of which they note, from our reading, this means if you've got M-block clips for an M1 Garand, you'll need to put a unique serial number in each one of them and register them with your local police department. And it's one of those they don't have, or I can't remember if it's the police department or office of public safety. But either way, you can't do all of that. And they're not going to do all of that. And so what happens then? Well, what happens then is they don't have to arrest everybody who doesn't do it. They can do, I mean, here in Massachusetts, you need a permit to even own firearms. So they could simply just not renew the permits of the people who don't comply. And again, if they don't own the permits, well, then you can arrest them if you see them with a firearm and they don't have a valid permit. Or you can also do things like, hey, that guy that's either running for public office or that person who's posting some really, really sick memes that are bothering us, or that person that's really doing a good job at vocally attacking the anti-gun agenda. Oh, let's scroll through. Hey, look, this person has firearms or had firearms beforehand. Let's search and see if they still have them.
Fishing expedition.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah, it's not an issue of are they going to get you all. It's a question of who are they going to choose to get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and with the decision itself, there is a bunch in the judge's decision that shows that it was a case of the judge had already come to their own conclusion before hearing any arguments and worked her way back, including stating, well, with the insurance thing, it's really not a burden on the gun owners. I mean, after all, if you behave yourself and are a good little citizen, then over time your insurance bill will go down naturally. But it's still a requirement, and as you stated, it's a requirement for you to purchase a product that doesn't currently exist.
Yep, it in some ways there's it's not the same, but it rhymes. The jurisdictions that have passed laws saying that once smart gun technology is proven to exist, those are the only guns that you can buy here. And okay, this guy patented the concept but never produced more than a handful of guns. Well, means that it exists, so you can only buy those guns here, but they don't exist. That's what the law says. Too bad.
All right, let's see. This next one reeks of Oddball. Oddball, did you post this one?
Let's see here.
It has to do with knives. Of course, it's Oddball.
Oh,
it's a sad.
Sorry,
thing,
I was looking at Erin had posted the press release, and I was going the Operation Blazing Swords press release over the San Jose gun tax, and I was just, wait, what? That's not me. Yes, Ontario Knives Company, which is a over 100-year-old American knife manufacturer that's a well-known and respected brand, and was one of the major manufacturers of K-bars and bayonet knives for the U.S. military, et cetera, et cetera. The company has been sold and is shutting down its New York factory.
Only in New York.
Yeah, and Franklinville.
Okay, so it's not the entire company that's being shut down.
Well, there's a question about that.
The Ontario Knife Company, which is a division, I guess, of Servotronics. They wanted to sell it off, is what I gather.
Yes, Servotronics has owned Ontario Knife Company for a good while now, and decided to sell off the company to refocus on the aerospace industry, which is what Servotronics primarily does. And things happened rather quickly. They announced that they were looking to sell the company in March, and they have already sold it to Blue Ridge Knives, which is a knife distributor. And according to this article, as of the 27th, which is 3 days from now as of recording, by the time you listeners are listening to this, it'll already have happened. The factory in Franklinville, New York, will have shut down operations, which means there's a few of their knives, which I believe all of the Old Hickory line of knives were made in New York, as were the Rat 3 and up numerically knives, which are well known as being good knives for outdoors camping, etc. And the Old Hickory knives are have been known as good, inexpensive kitchen knives. There's and why I say it's unknown as to what's going to happen to the brand itself is the web page is currently down there. Ontario, the web page has a splash page up saying changes are happening.
Please watch this space for more details. Basically,
yeah, basically one of those things, which could mean that Blue Ridge is looking to just refactor everything. Who knows? I mean, surely them putting $2.1 million into buying all the remaining inventory, according to this article from Nothing But Knives. But it does not. It didn't seem to include the factory or the machinery,
or the employee hiring the employees,
or the employees. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, interesting thing is the article says the website is down, but the sale website is not. I just went to OntarioKnifeStore.com and it pulls up and it seems to be functioning fine. So I'm wondering if it's just the corporate store that's down, but are they still processing sales is the question.
The website is down. The website is down.
Okay. I had gone to Ontario Knife Company's website earlier today, and it was...
Right. Well, this is the Ontario Knife Store website.
Which I'm wondering if that is a store that... Yeah, that's not the same thing as Ontario Knife Company.
So, okay, I thought that was the... Oh, yeah, that's out of Shreveport, Louisiana. Never mind.
Yeah, so that's a shop that specializes in selling their knives.
So did nobody hear what I was saying, or did you just not appreciate my humor?
No, I didn't hear.
I did not hear either.
Didn't either.
Oh, jeez.
But I mean, it obviously came through on your side, but it got squelched for us.
The website is down. The website is down.
I heard it, and I wanted to do I briefly thought about doing the strong bad techno chant in the background, but realized that would have made the ears bleed of our listeners, and I love them.
Yeah, doesn't care about our ears, just our listeners' ears.
That's right.
I actually did not hear that cut out for me.
But of course there are a number of their knives, especially their folding knives, that they had made in Taiwan, which are excellent knives, and Taiwan knives made in Taiwan tend to be well made. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to the brand. I'm really hoping that it doesn't end up being another brand like Schrade and Camilla and others, which were very well known and very well respected American-made knife brands that got bought up by a company that moves all of their stuff to the lowest bidder in China and starts making less than stellar knives.
Yeah, and I went to the K-Bar Knife Museum, which was in Olean, New York, which was why I thought that's where the factory was located as well. But that was the old factory location, I guess, and that was pretty cool chunk of history. So that's also sad.
And Nothing But Knives cites an article in Olean Times Herald. So I'm wondering if Franklinville is...
I think it's a suburb.
Yeah, it is right next door or something. But yeah, so...
All right, got another. This is actually, at the time of this recording, is breaking news. I actually just got the email alert as I was putting my daughter to bed. But
it's farther away than I thought.
What's that?
I'm guessing he's talking about the...
Franklinville is about 20 miles north of Olean. Probably about 30 miles driving.
I'm like,
okay.
No. They just released that this night. Is the this is coming from the Second Amendment Foundation, who is...
Oh, happy news! Thank you, Weer'd.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is the let's see. Let me read the specific ruling. The court. This is VANDERSTOK v. Garland, and it is challenging the authority of the Justice Department and the ATF at regulating items that are not firearms as if they are firearms, namely the new restrictions where partially completed, essentially 80% guns need to be serialized, and they have these goofy restrictions that are saying stuff like, what was it, like an 8-hour day in a fully equipped machine shop?
Yep. Something like that, yeah.
Now, does anyone know under what, if any, legislation ATF has claimed they have this authority, or they're just saying we do what we want?
They're just doing what they want. That's been for the pistol brace hearing. They were constantly pointing out the fact that the ATF was usurping the legislature, and the fact that
right. I just wondered if the receiver thing was like there was something in the GCA of 1986 or was it 86? Another one or something like that. If there was something in there about the definition of frames that they were using.
No, they had just decided to change their mind on the exact definition of what constitutes a frame from the GCA.
Okay, so it was based on some tenuous connection to the GCA of 68 here.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So GCA of 68 says a frame is X, and the ATF said, yeah, that's all well and good, but we're now going to say it's X, Y, and Z.
Well, they were saying that, yeah, the GCA says we can regulate frames, and we're going to say that these things are close enough to being frames that, yeah, they count too.
So yeah. Hooray for this ruling. Hopefully it'll just stand and they'll stop doing this. Because again, per the ATF's own ruling, of course, they'll change it as soon as it becomes problematic for them because they can. And this is not law and there's no consensus. This is entirely unilateral. But yeah,
it's like just an opinion, man. And I'm not casting shade at just an opinion.
Yeah, but per their rules, essentially Home Depot, Lowe's, your local scrap dealership are all gun makers now because people can go
go to the plumbing section.
Correct.
It's full of shotguns.
Yep, or stents.
Well, and just to be clear, this is the Fifth Circuit denying the stay of vacatur, blah blah blah.
What is that in English?
So the Fifth Circuit or the ATF is appealing the ruling from the lower court, saying that no, what the ATF was doing was not kosher. Stop that. And the Fifth Circuit, and of course the ATF had as part of the appeals process, petitioned the appeals court to put a stay on that order, which would mean that the ATF would be able to actually enforce their new rule while the court case was going on. And the Fifth Circuit panel actually stated, quote, because the ATF has not demonstrated a strong likelihood of success on the merits, nor irreparable harm in the absence of a stay, we deny the government's request.
Now, is this only the Fifth, or have any other circuits come to similar rulings?
I am only aware of the Fifth. That might be there might be others that I can't think of.
Okay. Because I would like to have this come out of the Sixth as well for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons, yeah. But there is the fact that chances are, if they lose in any of the any of the districts,
they lose. You mean the ATF?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, I needed one more proper noun.
Yeah, sorry. There's a pretty good chance that if the ATF loses in one of the circuits on the appellate level, they'll give up across the board. It's especially if they get their rear ends handed to them, because, well, they've already seen how this goes, and it doesn't look good for and it wouldn't look good for them. And two, while the circuits don't have to technically pay attention to what each other are doing, they do. And I really don't think the ATF wants this to go up to SCOTUS.
We do, but they don't.
Right.
Although it's always a crapshoot with SCOTUS. What they've been doing lately gives us some hope.
Right.
And I feel like Hawkeye in whichever of the latter Marvel movies, when Black Widow comes to him in that scene in the rain, don't do that. Don't give me hope.
Yep. All right. we got one more, and who put this one in?
I did. So I just wanted to give a shout out to T.Rex Arms. They're a holster manufacturer. They have recently, because their manufacturing process for their plastic holsters, they found it necessary to do detailed scans of various pistols and actually a couple of their holsters to get parts to modify them. They have decided to release those STLs to the wild. You can go to their website, and there is a section on their website that's labeled open source, and it's got the 3D scans of the pistols that they use, and some parts for their Sidecar holster, and they have decided to release those to the general public in hopes of people innovating. And hey, if you need a scan of a highly detailed and accurate scan of a gun, for they listed it for a video game, or costuming, or making holsters of your own, or whatever, here you go, have at it. And I think that is a really cool thing for companies to do, and I always appreciate it. It's the same reason why I bought a NAF brand knife, which is KNAF, because they similarly released STLs for the scales for their knives for anybody with a 3D printer at home that wishes to make their own scale. I always appreciate it when companies embrace the open source community and help folks out.
Yeah, apparently I was just looking through this, and they're still apparently putting up the scans, because if you go follow the link to their open source 3D scans, it lists, Beretta, CZ, FN, Glock, blah 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 blah, and for a number of them, it says sorry, that page doesn't exist.
Yeah, when
I think they're still processing through them.
Yeah, when I put that in the show notes earlier tonight at like 6:30, there were like 3 or 4 options in that on that page.
Yeah,
so they are very much. It's very much a work in progress, but they're in the process of doing it.
So as of Monday, July 24th, they're still in early days. By the time this episode is released into the wild, they'll probably be a lot more full figured. And yay for them.
Yeah.
Go forth and innovate, people. So thank you to Weer'd and Oddball for giving us some positive stuff to end on.
Well, I mean, I didn't give anything, so I at least am angst neutral tonight.
There we go. I didn't give anything either, so I will be angst neutral with you.
You did. You gave us a segment that we'll use next week, hopefully.
Yes, but for tonight's show, I did not provide any links because long day, got home, had to wash dishes, make dinner, etc. I mean, normally I could have pushed some of that off on my wife, but unfortunately, she injured herself yesterday. She badly cut her thumb while breaking down cardboard boxes. Not enough to require a trip to the ER, but I feel responsible because she cut herself with a knife that I gave her.
Ooh.
Remember, it was the little purple scaled Kershaw that I got at NRA 2019?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's like the second time she's used that knife since I gave it to her. So it was spicy sharp, and apparently it glided through more than just cardboard or tape. So, But she's healing. I just need to pick up more slack because, I mean, you got a big gash in your thumb. You're not doing dishes.
Yeah.
Did she need stitches?
She did not. She was concerned. I was at work when this happened, so I come home, or she sends me a text during my class about this, and I'm like, do I need to come home? And she's like, no, I got the bleeding to stop. I'm like, well, that's good. And then I get home, and she's like, so I said I got the bleeding to stop, and then I did something, and
yeah, and it opened back up.
Yep. So after I got home, I basically, anytime I saw her hand starting to drift below shoulder level, I would scold her.
How did that work for you?
She understood that I was doing it in her best interest, and I was trying to make it humorous. With things like, don't make me tie your hand to your shoulder.
Okay.
And Oddball and Erin, I'm sure, can both imagine the look that earned me.
Yeah.
But again, she understood it was from a place of caring and concern. But
I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't jokingly take it one step further into a well, let's just call it shibari. You would have gotten more than a look, I think.
I'm not sure if she's familiar with shibari. I did. Yeah. Hey now, what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom. But I was tempted to ask if she wanted me to put a bead of super glue on the cut, since that original purpose was surgical. But I know that from having other friends tell me commercial, non-medical super glue, when it cures, it can get rather hot. And that's on raw nerve endings is not fun. I don't know how hot it gets, but again, raw nerve endings.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had it in a cut, but I've definitely had enough of it on my fingertips.
Oh, yeah.
Never noticed it.
Yeah, but like I said, it might just be, it may not actually be temperature heat, it might just be chemical reactive heat on the open wound. But anyway, she's been good, so I don't have to make any other threats. And she's healing.
Threats.
Hey, David.
Oh, what now?
Who do we thank now, David?
We thank our listeners.
That's right. We thank our listeners, each and every one of you. And we also give a sincere apology for 2 back-to-back roundtables. Unless you're into that stuff, let us know.
We neither judge nor kink shame.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks.
So we may kink ask.
Yes. Very thanks to all of our listeners, but very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. So if you're on Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers Podcast to sign up. If you sign up for Patreon, it's not just a tip jar. It's not just it's not we're not passing the hat. We're selling you stuff. You can get yourself an early release of the podcast, but the real juice is the bonus shows, such as the hilarious ACP blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump.
I'm the only real Jew here.
Juice.
Oh, wait, O.J. Simpson?
Yes.
Oh.
He had an FAL.
I would like an FAL.
You should get one.
They cost more money.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends both online and off.
I get a blog. It's weirdworlds.com, and you can hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Erin Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Erin Paulette, all one word.
David, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me right here because I do submit segments on a regular basis.
Yes, you do.
They can also find me on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook and MeWe pages. I'm also occasionally on Handgun Radio, and I'd be on Handgun Radio more if they could choose any kind of consistency for recording Weer'd. although it's currently on brief hiatus, I'm also a contributor at Blue Collar Prepping, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. And I am a published author with stories and anthologies under both Brenna Bach, B-R-E-N-A, and David Bach.
Oddball, where can people find you?
I have a blog at gunscarstech.com, and I can be found here when I can actually get a segment done, and on the ACP Facebook group, and I'm a guest on Handgun Radio more than David is because, well, I don't sleep.
You're also the only reason Handgun Radio exists right now, because Ryan doesn't know how to work computers.
Well, there's that.
He is the he's the youngest old man I've ever met.
I think I was the one who said it, actually. It was the one where I was a guest, and I was there to talk about Blazing Sword, and I said something like, Ryan, you're the youngest of all of us. How can you possibly be a boomer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
You are absolutely correct. He is a boomer. Oh, I think it was in one of the Handgun Radio. I don't know if it was during the episode or during the pre or post banter where he went on a little rant about how no one needed a red dot.
Has he changed his mind? I don't think he's changed his mind yet. But either way.
No, but he's still a boomer.
Let's get out of here.
I live here.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.